Welcome to Right to Life Radio. Where else but Right to Life Radio can you get the news and insight on the lunacy that goes on every year in the California State Legislature? And I'm not talking about recalls. I'm not talking about, scandals. I'm talking about pro-choice legislation. Here with me to talk about some of the insane things that the California State Legislature is doing this year. He's back after a couple weeks hiatus and is genuinely an expert. It's like I get a special guest on the show every week. Genuinely a special expert on the topic of the California State Legislature, a guy who knows what he's talking about, Mr. Jonathan Keller from California Family Council.
Well, I was with you till the last one when you said knows what he's talking about. But
all right.
It's good to be back.
It is good. I know you've had a couple of weeks off.
It's, well, in a manner of speaking. Let's not, don't sing my obituary too quickly.
We suspended Jonathan.
That's right.
So Jonathan was not around to learn that according to a website called FeedSpot.
Oh, yes. Yes.
This very podcast and radio show has been... Now, this radio show is, of course, brought to you on the airwaves, the powerful airwaves of Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400. But you can also get it as a podcast, and actually the show sort of originally was just a podcast before it became a radio show. And it has been rated the fourth best pro-life podcast in the United States of America. So...
Makes sense to me.
A round of applause for your boys. It appears that feedspot.com has given us this distinction. I'd be lying if I told you I'd ever heard of feedspot.com prior to us being rated the fourth best pro-life podcast in America. But it seems like they actually have real criteria for measuring these things, and we're doing really well. So anyway, this is, as always, a production of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org, if you want to learn more about us and what we do. All right. One of the things we do at Right to Life of Central California is keep you involved and engaged when it comes to the California State Legislature. Now, the California State Legislature, no friend to pro-life policies. 3/4 of the members of both houses of the California Legislature are Democrats. And, regardless, Democrat, Republican, what's more important is that the vast majority of those Democrats are also very virulently pro-choice. And frankly, some of the Republicans aren't much better. So now last year, I think it might have been because of COVID, it didn't seem like there was a ton of bad anti-life legislation last year that really got pushed. I don't know if that was your sense, Jonathan.
I think it was largely because, as exactly you said, COVID kind of, it was the shoals upon which 1,000 legislative hopes were dashed.
Yes, exactly.
I can be very
if you can be
flowery in my language,
or if you're sort of referring to the Suez Canal situation.
Yeah, well, that too.
Yeah, I saw someone tweet about. Okay, so for those who don't know, apparently the entire Suez Canal this week has been plugged up by one big ship that got stuck. And it's like holding up like hundreds of millions of dollars of shipping every hour because someone ran their big tanker ship aground. And it's I saw a tweet that was funny of talking about, in the last month or two where people have been talking about stocks and shorts and Bitcoin and all these different economic things that I don't understand. It's really comforting to have an economic crisis on our hands that resulted from a big ship getting stuck in a canal.
Or John,
it's a very easy to understand problem.
My favorite tweet was from Dr. Parikh Patel, who is a CFA, and he looks like he is a man of Indian descent. And he said, "Ladies, if he blocks your every move, stands in the way of your dreams, doesn't care about his weight, he's not your man. He's the 220,000-ton tanker stuck in the Suez Canal."
Ladies. That's a deal breaker, ladies.
That's a deal breaker, ladies.
There you go, from the Deal Breaker show from 30 Rock. All right. Anyway, we're not here to talk about the Suez Canal. We're here to talk about the California State Legislature. I don't know how we got on that
Almost
topic.
as impacted, though.
Anyway, so the California State Legislature, very pro-choice. Last year, they kind of didn't really do much because of COVID, but they seem to be making up for lost time.
Well, I know. That was an improvement over what they're doing this year.
Yeah, doing nothing is usually a much better scenario for the California Legislature than doing something. So this year, now we at Right to Life of Central California, our focus is on life issues, abortion, assisted suicide. For those of you who are socially conservative in other fields. I recommend Jonathan Keller's organization, California Family Council, and their site where you can learn more about some of the other issues that maybe you care about. But for us, we're going to focus on 3 bills, 3 really bad pieces of legislation. I've talked about them on the show a bit, but I have Jonathan on with me to kind of elaborate on some of these things and give some of the context and the prospects that these bills face. So the first thing I want to discuss is a bill having to do with abortion, SB 245. Now, SB 245 has to do with abortion, and basically what this is going to do is it ramps up the already really bad situation we have in California when it comes to public funding of abortion. So, famously, the California State Supreme Court prevented the California legislature from basically setting up a California version of the Hyde Amendment.
Right.
So the federal government has the Hyde Amendment that says no federal taxpayer dollars can directly fund abortion. The California legislature in the 1970s wanted to imitate that. And basically the consensus was, look, people might disagree about whether abortion should be legal, but most people agree that you shouldn't force the taxpayer to pay for abortion in, insurance plans or, public insurance plans, especially Medicaid. And Medicaid was really the chief mechanism by which the government could be paying for abortion. Medicare is a bit more ordered towards older people. Medicaid is sort of open to anybody, including people of childbearing age. So ever since 1976, federal dollars have not directly funded abortions through Medicaid. And the California state legislature tried to do that, but thanks to a California state Supreme Court decision from 1981, the California state Supreme Court held that abortion is a fundamental constitutional right in the California Constitution, which explicitly protects privacy, which apparently all that privacy means in the California. The California Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, protects a right to privacy. And I'm pretty sure the only thing that the right to privacy actually means is the right to abortion. That's pretty much all it means. And basically they said, well, because the California Constitution protects the right to privacy, the state can't favor one birth choice over another through what it will and won't subsidize through
birth
government
choice
funding. So therefore, the state government has to keep funding abortion through the state Medi-Cal program, through the state funding for the Medi-Cal program. So every state's Medicaid program has some federal funding, some state funding. So as a result, California has always funded Medi-Cal abortions. But, however, this is taking things a step further. So what Senate Bill 245 is going to do is basically, if you have insurance, there are some out-of-pocket costs that you have for your abortion in many cases. Okay? You might have to pay a copay. Might have to...
a deductible. You might have to have an out-of-pocket maximum before you get there.
Right.
Everyone knows when you are in open enrollment season, you're rushing to get any elective medical procedures done up until that deadline.
Right, exactly. You want to get your money's worth. Now, what this bill would do, though, is eliminate any out-of-pocket expenses. All out-of-pocket expenses for abortion for anyone who has insurance. Okay, so we're not just talking about Medi-Cal, where obviously this is government subsidized insurance. This is government funded insurance. Obviously, the cost that someone is paying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free abortion. So someone is going to have to pay for this if you're eliminating all of the out-of-pocket costs for women who are having abortions who are on Medi-Cal.
John, you're telling me that these abortion doctors are not just going and killing babies out of the kindness of their heart for free?
They are not doing this for free. They ain't running a charity here, even though Planned Parenthood is technically a 501c3. They ain't running a charity here. They got to get paid. So,
and John, I just have to point out something. I'm sorry, I got to go on
a
mini rant.
That's why you're here on the show. Rant away.
The fact that you do have many doctors, good doctors, some that we agree with and some that we disagree with, but there's many doctors that actually do go on some sort of medical missions trips in some cases. I know, for example, Rand Paul. Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. He is fairly well known for, in addition to being named after the author of Atlas Shrugged,
Is he actually named after Ayn Rand?
Yeah, he is.
Oh my gosh.
That's why. That is how.
I just assumed his name was Randall.
No. It's Rand.
Dear Lord.
This is how I should say I'm like 99% sure from everything I've read.
That's like the most libertarian thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's Ron Paul. That's his dad.
Yeah, I guess so. All right.
But
anyway,
he has gone and done these missions trips where he goes as a Christian doctor down to South America or other places,
and he's an ophthalmologist, right?
Yeah, so he does surgeries to help people who have no health care in these poor developing countries.
Right.
And the way that Planned Parenthood and other people talk about things, they say, look, abortion is this procedure that it's so necessary. It's liberating. It's helpful.
It's about healthcare. It's about women's healthcare, basic women's healthcare.
You would think that the way they talk about it and the way that it is cruel and, violent and harsh to deny women this life-saving procedure, you would think that they would be doing it through something like Mercy Ships or something like Doctors Without Borders, where they're going and they're offering these free procedures. But no, abortion is
they're here to make
big business.
Yeah. Well, they're again, they ain't running a charity here.
Yep.
Although they are running a 501c3. Yeah, and who is a more reliable source of payment than the California state taxpayer? So that's basically where these costs are going to get shifted. Is instead of women who have abortions having to pay anything out of pocket, if they're on Medi-Cal, presumably a big bulk of that cost is going to shift to the taxpayer. And then when we're talking about people who have private insurance, obviously that's going to result in higher premiums, et cetera, et cetera. So it's shifting around the costs, but the chief thing to realize is that, look, people will act. I realize people are not just economic automatons who just do whatever the economics tell them, but people will respond to incentives. And if you incentivize getting abortions by making it free, more or less, or at no cost to yourself, and having your insurance cover all the rest, and there's no out-of-pocket cost to you, guess what? It's just going to happen more. And this is a drastic increase in abortion funding. It's a drastic simplification of abortion funding. And it goes with the broader theme of the pro-choice movement, which we talk about a lot on this show. No one is interested in abortion being safe, legal, and rare anymore. No one cares about it being rare. No one on the left wants it to be rare. They don't use that language anymore. All right, that's from the 90s. That's passé. What they want is abortion to be safe, legal, and universally accessible. That's right. If you don't toe that party line, then you're out of here. And that's why, the Democratic platform position when it comes to the Hyde Amendment has changed. It's why the Democrat position on all these things is shifting to a more and more aggressive posture where they want federal funding for abortion. They want to force religious hospitals to do abortions because basically anything that stands in the way of a woman getting an abortion is an obstacle that needs to be knocked down. And one of the chief obstacles being lack of ability to pay. Well, if you can't pay for your abortion, then we'll have the American taxpayer or the California taxpayer pay for it for you. And this is, obviously it's not a very interesting or exciting bill, but it's pretty straightforward. This is going to massively increase abortion access in a state that already, it's weird because California is, as you've pointed out, Jonathan, we're the only state that both doesn't report our abortion statistics to the CDC and has direct funding of abortion through our Medicaid program.
Yep. We're this weird unicorn where there's 3 states nationwide that don't report to the CDC.
Right.
But I think it's
Maryland,
California, and then I don't know if it's like Oklahoma. It's one weird one. But California by far is the
most significant,
massive outlier.
Right.
Of that. There's 15 states that use some form of funding, but like you said, at the Venn diagram, we're the only state that does both of those.
Right. So we both have abortion funding and we don't have the accountability of showing people, hey, how many of these abortions are even happening? All right. Now, when we get back, as we talked about abortion access being the end-all be-all, we're going to talk about ways in which abortion providers are trying to attack religious hospitals to force them to provide abortions. That's next on Right to Life Radio, right here on Power Talk, a production of Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. Back with Right to Life Radio on Power Talk. Thank you to all of you listening. Hey, if you like this radio show, if you like hearing me and Jonathan Keller talk about pro-life stuff, and you want to support our work, get in touch with us at Right to Life of Central California, rtlcc.org. Visit the website there, and you can donate. If every single one of you in the sound of my voice were to join our 300 Club, this is basically you give $25 a month. That's $600 a year. Or excuse me, $300 a year. Hence the name 300 Club. We'd basically never have to fundraise again. And ministries like this show, our outreach center, all that, we'd be totally in like Flint. We'd be totally set.
Hey.
Anyway, support us, rtlcc.org. All right, Jonathan.
That's me.
Now, one of the big issues for your organization is the topic of religious liberty.
Yes, indeed.
And basically the liberty of people with more traditional ethical beliefs to live out those traditional beliefs, especially those beliefs that are consistent with Christianity, etc. Now, I want to discuss a really bad bill, another one of the bills that we at Right to Life of Central California are focused on. And by the way, in the next week or so, we'll probably announce this next Saturday, which will be Holy Saturday.
Ooh.
Might try and coordinate this with Easter. The Diocese of Fresno, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fresno, Right to Life of Central California, and California Family Council will be launching a special advocacy webpage to focus on all of the bad abortion bills that are in front of the California State Legislature so that you can review them, so that you can submit letters of opposition to your members of the State Assembly and State Senate. I have looked at what Jonathan has prepared for us, and it looks smashing. So anyway, stay tuned for that. We will probably announce that over the course of the next week. One of those bills that we're going to focus on is a bill that's a real direct attack on religious liberty. And this bill is, I'm looking up the bill number right now about hospitals. Oh, gosh, what is the name of it?
SB 380?
SB 380, that's the assisted suicide bill.
Is it SB 379, the Catholic hospitals?
379, yes,
Yep.
yes, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, is it not on your list here, Jonathan?
No, it's over here. It's on this one.
All right, there we go. Okay. Okay.
Would prevent Catholic hospitals from telling UC staff, people who are working, they're interns.
Right. Okay, I get this.
Working as at the University of California, like UCSF, for example,
Yeah.
UC Merced. The Catholic hospitals could not prohibit those staff from providing abortions, transgender surgeries, or assisted suicide.
Right. So basically, here's the situation. Javier Becerra was really mad about this when he was the Attorney General. You had these Catholic hospital chains setting up these big mergers around the state, and a lot of these Catholic hospital chains had agreements in place with various California public hospitals, okay? Many of them affiliated with the University of California schools, okay? You think of UCSF here in Fresno. And a lot of these hospitals have various sharing arrangements, personnel sharing arrangements, referral arrangements, etc., with Catholic hospitals, okay? So there's a nice relationship between these Catholic hospitals and some of these University of California hospitals. Now, the Catholic hospitals have certain provisos for how they can work with public hospital, with other non-Christian hospitals. One of those requirements are, hey, if you're working with us, you can't do abortions on our facility, okay? You can't do contraception referrals or contraceptive procedures like a tubal ligation or a vasectomy or something on our premises. You can't do sex change operations, transition procedures, whatever, on our premises.
John, are you telling me that these Catholic hospitals actually claim that the religious dictates of their faith have governing authority inside these Catholic buildings paid for by Catholic dollars, staffed by Catholic individuals?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Crazy that Catholic institutions would want to be run according to Catholic principles.
That just seems totally discriminatory to me. I don't understand how they can do that.
Now, so this piece of legislation, SB 379, this is introduced by California State Senator Scott Wiener. Now, Senator Wiener has introduced a lot of bad bills, and he's super pro-LGBT stuff, very pro-choice, etc. This is
pro-drug, by the way, John. I just want to point out.
pro-drug use, too. Yeah.
I mean, I know this is a little outside the Right to Life radio scope, but just as an example, he has a bill that would basically legalize hard drugs. Decriminalize. It would allow the use. I'm not talking about marijuana. I'm talking about
like heroin cocaine,
magic mushrooms. I mean, all sorts of stuff that the state of California would be required to provide safe injection sites and staffed by nurses.
So this guy is pretty out there.
Yes.
And when we come back, I'm going to sort of explain a little bit about this bill a little bit more, how this relates to the general theme of many on the pro-choice side that, oh, we need more abortion access. We need abortion access. This is limiting access, and developing that theme and how it relates to the religious liberty of pro-life practitioners not to participate in abortion. That is next right here on Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400. Welcome back to Right to Life Radio. A happy pre-Holy Week to all of you as Palm Sunday starts tomorrow. Happy Holy Week to all of you. And a happy end to 40 Days for Life also. Today, Jonathan, is the second to last day of 40 Days for Life, and it's been a really wonderful campaign. If you want to learn more about Right to Life of Central California's ongoing sidewalk advocacy efforts outside of the Planned Parenthood Clinic on Fulton Street, please do get in touch with us at 559-229-2229. If you want to learn more about it, if you want to get trained as a sidewalk advocate, if you want to come out and join us, just pray with us, please do get in touch with us. We're out there a couple days every week, and it's really wonderful work. All right. So in the last segment of the show, Jonathan and I, we were discussing Senate Bill 379. And this has to do with basically hospital sharing agreements between University of California hospitals and Catholic hospitals or other religious hospitals, where these religious hospitals basically set up this framework to say if UC practitioners are going to be within our Catholic hospitals helping patients, you can't do certain things. You can't do abortions. You can't do contraceptive practices. You can't do this. You can't do that. Totally understandable. Makes perfect sense. And a bunch of people on the pro-choice side hate this. They really don't like it. And this has to do with this ongoing effort on abortion access. So what's the theory? Now, Jonathan, do you remember that piece in 538 about
you beat me to
Catholic hospitals?
Okay. I was going to tell you, when we say they don't like it, John, we're not comparing, we're not conveying the disdain and opprobrium with which the mainstream media, we're not saying like, oh man, I'm frustrated. Oh, well, I wish that they would do this.
I don't like the Dallas Cowboys.
We're talking about the fact that major mainstream news organizations will go out of their way not to write a tweet, not to write a Facebook post, not to write an article, but a series of articles about how unjust and discriminatory and the fact that Catholic hospitals existing is a threat to equity and equal access.
Right. So what's the argument they're basically making? So the ACLU has been trying to lay this groundwork for many, many years. And this bill, I think, is the first salvo of trying to make their ideas into reality. So what the ACLU has been doing is they've been trying to sue various Catholic hospitals, particularly Catholic hospitals, and I don't think they care that they're Catholic or not, by the way. It's just that Catholics have more hospitals than other religious groups do.
And John, to be fair, I just want to say there are some parts of the country where there are Methodist hospitals or
Adventist
Lutheran
and there are a lot
hospitals.
I think we have Adventist Health here in Fresno. Yeah. So I don't want to make this exclusive to Catholics, and the disdain for religious hospitals that don't do abortion is totally ecumenical. So if I say Catholic, just know I'm just using the default because Catholic hospitals most of the hospitals in these situations are Catholic. So the ACLU has basically looked for these religious, usually Catholic hospitals that are located in relatively rural parts of the country, where basically the Catholic hospital is the only hospital around. Okay? You can picture this. Okay? I'm sure we can find examples of this in maybe very far up in Northern California, near like Oregon. I'm sure these are very rural parts of the country. And there's some of these places where the only local healthcare provider is a Catholic hospital.
Yeah.
Right.
And you could see this, John. I mean, again, the Midwest, I think, is where there's been a lot of discussion because areas where there were previously no hospitals, faith-based organizations
Right.
decided, you know what? Part of our mission is
to help the poor and help the poor living in rural communities and farming communities. Let's establish a hospital to serve them.
Yep. Because the federal government isn't doing it, the state government isn't doing it.
So we're going to do it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that makes sense. So you have a rural part of the country where the Catholic hospital is the only hospital. If someone wants an abortion in that part of the country, their options are not very many. Okay? They can't go to the Catholic hospital. And so often they will have to drive a couple of hours to get to the nearest abortion clinic. Now, the pro-abortion side obviously views this as a horrible tragedy, as a horrible imposition on a woman's right to choose. Now, I will note that the right to keep and bear. Now, again, I'm not saying a need to own a gun or the burdens of not owning a gun are the same as the burdens of an unwanted pregnancy. I'm not trying to be insensitive, but I'm saying at the level of what must the government's posture be as far as our ability to exercise our constitutional rights. I'll note that if there isn't a gun store within an hour or two of me, I don't go to the government to petition them to open a gun store within an hour of where I live.
Right.
Or in the case of our fight against Senate Bill 24, the bill that required medication abortion on the campuses of all the UCs and CSUs, I didn't require a gun store on my college campus either.
Right.
Anyway, so.
Well, John, I heard this on an earlier call I was on with some of our friends, the Life, Faith, and Family Coalition today. We were talking about this, and it was both with this bill and with the bill regarding copays that we may have a chance to talk about if we have time. The point of it that they made was set aside other constitutional rights, like ones that are actual constitutional rights,
like actually in the Constitution,
you know,
like actually written there,
yeah,
that you can read. Unlike the right to abortion, which is floating in the ether somewhere.
Let's just talk about medical procedures. What other medical procedure is there that we would say, I'm not able to go and get heart surgery,
a kidney transplant,
transplant. I am going to demand that the government build a hospital here, or the UTEL, for example. I'm going to pick something a little bit silly, but let's imagine that you have a dental clinic, and you go into that dental clinic and you say, hey, I know that you are a dental clinic, but I have kidney disease and I need dialysis.
Yeah.
This is a life-sustaining procedure.
Yeah, you don't have a dialysis machine, then you are violating my constitutional right to dialysis. Yeah. So it's obviously silly. Anyway, we're
a little far afield.
We're wildly off course here. All right. So imagine, if you will, a Catholic hospital. Catholic hospital is the only hospital around in this rural part of the country. The ACLU has basically been trying to file lawsuits to say that if you're a hospital that purports to be engaging in non-discriminatory activity, okay, any business since the Civil Rights Act is not allowed to discriminate on the basis of sex as far as how it serves its patrons, okay? Why I always love going to a restaurant that has that sign that says, "We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone for any reason." And I don't actually, not because I believe this, but because I want to demonstrate the absurdity of it, I want to make a little sign to add to the bottom of it that says, especially the gals and black people and the Jews. You can't refuse people service for any reason. Okay.
Yep.
There are some reasons where you legally are not allowed to refuse people service. If you have a business and you refuse to serve women, it's not going to work in most cases. If you have a business and you refuse to serve black people,
not going to work.
You're breaking the law and being a terrible person. If you refuse to serve the Jews, again, bad. So you can't refuse to serve people for any reason. So what the ACLU is arguing is, look, this hospital is posing itself as open to the public, serving all the public, but they are refusing to provide this basic women's health care service, abortion, and refusing to provide it when there's no other reasonable place for women to go to get it. Ergo, Catholic hospitals are engaged in discriminatory conduct against women. They are violating basically the federal civil rights law and all kinds of non-discrimination laws that exist at the federal and state levels by not providing abortion. Now, those lawsuits have not been succeeding, but it's laying the groundwork. Basically, the idea is that the viewpoint towards Catholic hospitals is not, from our pro-choice friends, is not that they are simply, they're these weirdos who have these weirdo religious beliefs, and I guess we got to just kind of work around them because that's their thing. And, we should no more force Catholics to do abortions than we should force, the Amish to wear zippers. No, their approach is that Catholics who run Catholic hospitals, or Adventists who run Adventist hospitals, or Baptists who run Baptist hospitals, whatever it is, that don't do abortions are basically violating federal law by discriminating against women in terms of what they offer. And these lawsuits that they filed have tried to lay the groundwork to develop that point of view. And the notion is a woman's ability to access abortion, which is being hindered by this religious viewpoint, that's the fault line. Okay, and that's ultimately what's going to have to be decided, I think, by the Supreme Court. Okay, what is more important? Do we think it's the right to abortion or even to access abortion, which maybe you could say are two divisible things, or the First Amendment right to free exercise of religion, or your rights under the Federal Religious Freedom Restoration Act? And that has to be decided at some point. At some point, we need a conclusive decision about what's more important: religious liberty of institutions to operate according to their founding ideals, or the right of women to access abortion. And this also plays into a lot of other questions, frankly. What's more important, religious liberty of institutions or LGBT stuff? Or,
well, John,
it's mostly LGBT stuff.
I really wonder, if only there was some forum in which our current newly confirmed Secretary of Health and Human Services had made comments about that.
Aha. Well, yes, there was. So the Secretary of Health and Human Services was asked about this very question. You may know him as Xavier Becerra, our former Attorney General. Now, when Xavier Becerra was nominated to be Attorney General back in, I believe that was 2016, correct? 2017. So Kamala Harris gets elected U.S. Senator. She's no longer the AG. Xavier Becerra gets nominated to be the AG and gets confirmed by, I think, the state Senate to be AG or some.
Yeah, it was a joint hearing because Assemblyman James Gallagher, I know, asked one of the questions.
So he had a hearing in front of the Assembly, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services was asked about institutions and their right to free exercise of religion under the First Amendment. And Xavier Becerra gave the opinion that institutions don't have a First Amendment right to free exercise of religion, that is a right that only applies to individuals. Therefore, forcing a pro-life pregnancy center, which is a legal person as a corporation, to violate their religious liberty, their beliefs under the religious ideals according to which they were founded, that's not a violation of the First Amendment at all. Asking a church to do something, a church as the corporation, the legal person of a church. Okay, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fresno is a legal person. The fictitious person of a corporation. That, according to Xavier Becerra, does not have a First Amendment right to free exercise of religion. It's only us individuals. It's not the Catholic Church. It's only me as a Catholic. It's not, Campus Bible Church. It's only Jonathan as a Campus Bible Churchian.
And this may mean, John, now that he is the Secretary of Health and Human Services for the whole country, it really makes you wonder, in conjunction with bills like this, whereas the previous administration might have slapped down California if they were trying to force Catholic hospitals to provide abortions, the current administration not only will probably look the other way, they probably will actively weigh in.
They'll probably celebrate it. They'll probably, because it's going to be Xavier Becerra, pushing that score, and that's maybe the greatest tragedy of the Biden administration is the fact that Xavier Becerra is in charge of HHS. Like, I can't overstate how much he is the worst pick in the whole. Like, I know there was a whole controversy about that woman Neera Tanden who was nominated to be at the Office of Management and Budget, and basically one Democrat senator, Joe Manchin, voted against her confirmation on the basis of she had made a bunch of nasty tweets against people. Neera Tanden was she's like a Hillary crony, and is a very active Twitter presence and made a lot of nasty, mean jokes about different senators she does not like. and it basically sunk her chances of being nominated to the Office of Management and Budget, which is a lesson for all of you kids. What you put on the internet is forever.
That's right.
But then I would have rather had 20 Neera Tandons than one Javier Becerra. And the fact that Joe Manchin used his whatever little political capital he had left to push back against the Biden administration, that he wasted it on Neera Tandon when he should have voted no on Javier Becerra, that is a really disappointing thing. All right, when we return, to close out the show, we're going to talk a little bit about a new terrible bill to advance physician-assisted suicide and, again, further attack religious liberty. That's next on Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400, rtlcc.org. John Girardi here with you for Right to Life Radio. Thank you all so much again for listening right here on Power Talk 96.7 AM 1400 or through Apple Podcasts. And hey, again, this is rated the fourth best pro-life podcast in America. Let me just casually list some of the big hitters we beat out. The official 40 Days for Life podcast. Sorry. We beat out Father Frank Pavone. There are a lot of heavy hitters in the pro-life podcasting world that this fine podcast and radio show has beaten out. So congratulations to us. Jonathan, no one else is going to pat your own back except you. So I think we got to toot our own horns. Otherwise, no one's going to toot. All right. That sounded awkward. As we close up the show, I want to talk a little bit about another bad piece of legislation before the California State Legislature. And these are sort of the three biggies that we are going to focus on. Basically, we're going to focus on three really bad abortion bills this year. Two abortion bills, actually, and one physician-assisted suicide bill. And those bills, again, are AB 797, SB 245, and now we have SB 380. Okay, so what is SB 380? Susan Eggman introduced this, Senator Susan Eggman, who is the one who introduced the bill that legalized physician-assisted suicide in California back in 2015. And this is basically to expand physician-assisted suicide in various ways. Now, assisted suicide has all kinds of problems. One of the big problems with it is that there isn't mandatory healthcare screening. But when there is a healthcare screening, when there is a mental health screening, rather, ordinarily you need to have a physician do it, either a psychiatrist or a psychologist. That's going to get changed under this bill. All you'll need to do is go to a clinical social worker for your mental health screening in order to ensure that you have sufficient mental capacity to make the choice to engage in physician-assisted suicide. But here's the problem, is that the advocacy groups that have pushed these physician-assisted suicide bills, they have lists of doctors and they have lists of social workers who are supportive of the right to physician-assisted suicide, and they will just recommend patients to those specific practitioners who will rubber stamp any request for physician-assisted suicide because they're weirdo monsters who like people committing suicide. So now the other part of this, though, and I think this is the part that I'm a bit more upset about in some ways, not that the other part is good, is how it starts to open the door to coercing doctors to go along with physician-assisted suicide. So right now, and this was the deal, frankly, that was struck in 2015 when physician-assisted suicide was legalized. It was very contentious to legalize assisted suicide. Democrats voted against it for years and years and years and years and years. It took like 20 years to finally legalize it.
And John, to clarify, it took a special session even the year it got legalized.
Yeah, a special session that was supposed to be about a different topic altogether. The deal that was hatched was that we'll pass this, but no doctor has to participate in assisted suicide. That was made clear. This is totally optional. This is all about choice. No doctor has to participate. Absolutely not. If you're a doctor and you don't want to participate, you have no obligation to do so. If you're a hospital, you don't want to participate, no obligation to do so. Note how similar that is to a lot of the language about abortion back in the early days of legalized abortion, where it was like a very strong conscience. No one has to do an abortion if they don't want to do it. And now we're getting to this point right now where more and more attempts to sort of force OBs to do it, to force Catholic hospitals to provide it, et cetera, break down conscience protections. And that's what's starting to happen with physician-assisted suicide. So now what this bill is recommending, well, not recommending, I think it's requiring, is that if a doctor doesn't want to do physician-assisted suicide, that he's going to be under some kind of obligation to issue a formal referral of that patient to a different doctor who will do it. And this is the thing. I think a lot of people on the cultural left don't appreciate the importance of conscience in any way, shape, or form. Like just do it. Basically, the lefty, the
bake
social
the cake.
Just bake the cake. Jack Phillips, the guy who didn't want to bake a cake celebrating a gay wedding, just pay for a little bit of that abortion coverage. Just do this. Just go along. What's the big deal? And traditionally, any Christian doctor, physician, has always taken the stance of, I am both not going to do something that is evil, nor am I going to formally participate in that evil by referring you to a doctor who will do it, refer you to this doctor so that he can do it or so that she can do it. All right? It's not just enough for an OB to say, I'm not going to do abortions. He or she also doesn't want to refer you to an OB for an abortion. Mm-hmm. It's not just that you don't want to do assisted suicide. You don't want to have to refer someone for assisted suicide. So that is the madness that this bill does. Again, SB 380, another bill that deserves our fervent opposition. More on ways in which we're going to oppose this next week. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Right to Life Radio on Power Talk 96.7 and AM 1400, rtlcc.org to support us at Right to Life of Central California.